Welcome, everyone. I'm Manny Maceda, CEO of Bain & Company, and I thank you for joining this session. You saw in the setup, circularity is one of the core opportunities and themes. It's not a new topic. It's something that's been around for a while, but the momentum around this, as you see from various sessions, even here in Davos, it has a lot of potential. We are consuming, as you saw, 1.75 times the amount of resources that our planet's generating, and that's just not sustainable. We have to be able to figure out how to solve this in a way that also creates good economic outcomes. And this requires businesses and governments to work together. So I'm grateful that we have great panelists joining the session today. To my immediate left, Her Excellency Vivianne Heijnen, Minister for the Environment of the Netherlands. And then we have three CEOs. Cenk Alper, who's CEO of Sabanci, a diversified conglomerate out of Turkey. Sabrina Soussan, the CEO of SUEZ, a global water and wastewater company headquartered in France. And then Ric Fulop, founder and CEO of Desktop Metal. 3D printing recyclable materials is potentially a solution. So we'll have multiple perspectives. And I thought let's have a good dialogue. Cenk, why don't I start with you, leading a diversified company. How does circularity fit your strategic and operating agenda as a CEO?
Yeah. As a conglomerate, we are active in clean energy technologies, energy and climate technologies. We are active in material technologies, financial services, and digital technologies. So if you look, circularity helps us for all our business lines, I should say. So first of all, I think we have to unlearn that we have learned with linear economies. We have to rethink how we can generate value through circular economies. And to do that, I think so far, everybody thought that circularity is just recycling from trash. It's not. Let's demystify it. I think there are many aspects of circularity. First of all, I think we have to reverse look to all our supply chains, and every supply chain member can play a different role over there. For example, retailers or last mile delivery companies can be reverse logistic companies to collect all the materials so that we can eliminate sorting, collecting issues. So that's a perfect opportunity. Refurbishment is another opportunity. For example, we have a technology retailer company where we recollect cell phones, refurbish them, sell them. If we cannot sell them, we direct them to women under violence so that they can call police whenever necessary. So that's a social impact also. Repurposing materials is very important. Sometimes a recycled material can not be used for the same purpose. Then we have to redirect it. For our energy sector right now, we just, for example, invested into a startup company called SUEZ, deep drilling technology, where we can utilize our existing power plants, thermal power plants, with the geothermal material. So this is a repurposing of an existing asset. Or a tire material out of use can be used as a concrete reinforcement material. So this is another way that we can utilize it. So there are multiple ways. Repair is extremely important. Today, an average truck tire with its first life can run 300 kilometers. But by just retreading, we can extend the life of that tire to 1 million kilometers. And we save lots of material. And final, creating revalue or regeneration. That requires chemistry, of course, but we can devulcanize a tire or pyrolysis a tire, and we can end up with original materials, and we can reuse them to make materials. So if we demystify it, it's not just recycling. There are multiple ways of bringing circularity into life.
Thank you, Cenk. So it's recycling, repair, retread, regenerate. And for a company like you that's a conglomerate in many different businesses, you're applying it broadly. Sabrina, you're a very large company, and maybe the ultimate recyclable material we need, water. How does this fit your strategies?
Thank you, and nice to be here today with you. So SUEZ is a global leader in water and waste management, and our goal, our aim is to provide solutions and to be the trusted partner for circular solutions in water and in waste. Yeah? So I mean, we are really in the middle of it. And maybe when we think about circular economy, we thought about the benefit of circular economy for the environment, for the ecological transition, preservation of resources, how can we reduce greenhouse gas by extracting less raw materials. And now with the current crisis, energy crisis, geopolitical crisis, it's becoming even more and more relevant, and the benefits are not only environmental but also economics. You know? What I mean with this, when we think about raw material, everybody knows we have a shortage of raw material, and we can, with producing secondary raw material, so we can make sure that we improve the situation. So that's the part on the material side. The part on energy is an important part also, energy crisis. We need more independence. And with waste, we can produce energy. We can produce energy, we can produce biomethane. Yeah? And this is key for our future, for independency, and also for producing renewable energy. One concrete example in France, there was some simulation, and with the production of energy from waste, we could supply 1/3 of the gas which came from Russia, yeah, through biomethane and through energy from waste till 2025.
Cenk,
I like to give concrete example all the time.
Thank you, and I think we'll get into it. And Cenk, just to come back, water, I presume, is a key category in your circularity strategies. How do you think about water with our friend Sabrina over there?
We have water reduction programs. 3 of our companies right now in CDP A+ league. So our first goal, of course, is to decrease the consumption of water. Then you have to reuse water, clean water, and then we have to come up with, like SUEZ, how we can regenerate clean water and use for different applications.
If I may add something, yes, on water,
which is key for our future, reuse of water. Yeah?
Yes.
And not for companies, but in general. Yeah? And it's about regulations also. There are some countries who are able to use or who already reuse water, wastewater, reusing this water for agricultural use, for example. Countries like Israel or Egypt or Australia, they are more than 80% reuse. Country like France, less than 1%. In Spain, it's around 15%. And here, when you think about water scarcity, 2035, 40% of the worldwide population will live in water-stressed countries. And we still use drinkable water to water land or garden or streets or agriculture. So this is, and the technology is here. And that's what I want to say today. The technology is here. Yeah? Everything is here. So we need really this push or this partnership, public-private, regulatories, innovation, bring this together and make sure things happen, because it can happen and it's possible.
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. Ric, and we'll come back to regulation, Your Excellency, also in a minute. But Ric, why don't you join the conversation? You're founder, CEO of a company that creates 3D printing using waste materials, and that's potentially a solution to this.
Absolutely. So, we do printing with a variety of materials, or we make machines that our customers use to make these types of parts, and they range from pretty much every BMW on the road coming out of their plants today has parts made with our technology. On the metal side, we've got on the polymer side market leadership in dental class 2 type of parts, but we have a technology called binder jetting that allows you to take powders and combine them with an inkjet binder and then form a structural part. An example of a circular product that we've developed is the ability to do synthetic wood If you think of wood, it's made of lignin and cellulose in the tree. The lignin puts it together. And then when you make paper, you sort of split that up. You throw away the lignin, and then you take the cellulose and make pulp. We're doing it in reverse. So you spread the powder as cellulose, and you inkjet the lignin, and you now make a 3D printed wood part that is actually basically reconstituting the wood. And then in addition to that, I think one of the really wonderful things about additive manufacturing for mass production is that you have inputs that can be powder. So a waste company that collects steel and aluminum and a variety of other materials can then micronize that and atomize that back into a powder that can then be turned into any type of object out of that material in an efficient way. And you can do that now with generative design and techniques that make the products lighter weight. You can actually get significant benefits in performance for those parts. You can achieve shapes that are more efficient than what you would have done with conventional manufacturing processes that would be basically tooling based. So by having a tool-free process, you can do more sophisticated things.
So here we're seeing a lot of committed CEOs and companies, possible solutions. Governments play a role, and this has not been easy to help enable. Your Excellency, Vivianne, how do you, as Minister of Environment for the Netherlands, how are you encouraging, enabling, making it easy for us to do this?
Well, maybe first of all, I'm really a firm believer in a circular economy. And in my opinion, it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have, also for companies, because we're running out of natural resources, and every business model that continues to build on, just using up the natural resources that are available still will have a problem at some point in their existence. So it is important that we all understand how crucial it is if we also want to leave a better world for future generations. And the interesting thing is that whenever I'm at these meetings, I'm always very inspired, and I'm really happy to hear about all the good initiatives that companies are taking. On the other hand, on Monday, the Circularity Gap report was presented. And instead of doing better, we're doing worse. So we went from 9.1% circular in 2018 to 7.2% circular in 2023. So there is still a lot to be done. I've been talking to a lot of companies also here at the World Economic Forum, and the good thing about these sessions that we have, and also the ones that are behind closed doors, is that you can be very open to each other. And one of the things I heard a lot is that companies are asking for leadership politically in order to really set common standards, to be clear on the policy and legislation that they have to live up to, and they want us to commit to long-term goals. And I'm really happy that our Euro Commissioner is here, who is also a strong advocate and believer in the circular economy. And we're looking at ways to also tackle it on a European but also on a global scale, because it is very important if we ask companies to make the investments in the circular economy, that they also know that we're not going to change policy every couple of years, because you cannot build a business model on that. Second thing is that a lot of companies at the moment are innovating in a very fast pace, and legislation is not always, and policy is not always catching up with the innovations that are taking place. That means that we have to continue to have a very good and strong dialogue with each other and see how we can help. Another point that I consider to be political leadership, because that's also something that I hear a lot, being in politics and also working as a civil servant means that you have to live up to certain rules that are into place, of course, but in order to be able to innovate, you always have to look at ways within the existing rules where there's room to maneuver in order to stimulate innovation. And one of the things I'm telling the people in my team is look for the space there is and I will back you up. So they have to know that they are supported by their political person in order to look for the space that there is. And if they have to say that something cannot be done, I always ask them, tell the company what they should do to make them be able to do it in the end. I think that's also very important. I am very hopeful. I see a lot of good initiatives. If I look at a company that I visited just a couple of weeks ago in the Netherlands, they recycle all concrete that is available. By 2030, we want to recycle all concrete that there is. So there are very nice and good examples of a circular economy, but we really have to help each other keep the dialogue going. And we have to share best practices, because in the Netherlands we have quite a lot of expertise in the field of circular economy, but not in every field of business. And there are other countries who are more experienced, and we have to keep meeting and share experience and knowledge with each other.
Well, you know, you stated this is arguably a platform that's getting worse. We're consuming 1.75 times the planet's resources ability to generate. The gap's getting bigger, despite everything we're committed to. This requires both technology change, and back to the request you have, how do you get the flywheel spinning, incentives, deregulation, presumably also consumer behavioral change. Maybe I'll come back to our operating CEOs and say the challenges that Her Excellencies raised, can you get very sharp on what do you need to do to actually get this going faster? Maybe, yeah. Cenk, I'll start with you, then Sabrina. Yeah.
I think one standard or regulation that we can expect is we have to push all companies design for circularity. So we have to know that we will return those products to the economy again. So we have to devote more resources on R&D to circularity. Second, we have to use the power of digital, because as we use recycled materials, you know, traceability of the materials are critical. For example, what we did is we have acquired a IoT vehicle tracking company to our tire manufacturing company, so that we can follow all the tires and we can replenish them when it is necessary or retread them when it is necessary. So the power of digital is extremely important, and I think regulation can help us over there a lot. Third is we have to break the silos within the value chain between the competition. Actually, we have an excellent example that we came together with a tire manufacturer, Continental. Actually, it's a competition of one of my subsidiaries. We have a joint venture with Bridgestone. We came together with them and we have developed an environmental friendly material. What we did, if they always require more than 2 suppliers. So if I don't share my IP with my competitors, the industry will not change. So we formed a pool called Cocoon. We put all IP, Continental put their IP into that pool, and we made it public with the condition that the companies that will use that IP has to contribute their IP into that pool. With that, actually, we are changing the whole look to the industry, because now problem is not just I should own everything, I should earn everything. The problem is, can we speed up? Otherwise, we will deplenish all the resources of the world. So we have to be fast, and industry players, governments has to ignite us, like the name of this room, so that we can be faster.
There was one of our contests, who can get the room name into the conversation. Cenk won that. So the concept of working in a value chain unnaturally with competitors, with suppliers, with vendors, something actually the WEF is able to enable, and hopefully government regulation says that's okay. Sabrina, I think another part of this has got to be end customer demand, right? Does the world want, and is there anything you're doing there to see and spike that on circularity?
Yeah. We provide solutions again, so we are maybe in a different place than you are. So I believe, maybe back to your first question, I believe that it's important that partners or companies who were not used to work together now work together. That's the difference between linear economy and circular economy. And this is key for success. One example that I want to mention is plastic, plastic recycling, because plastic is on the top of the mind of everyone. We are working on chemical recycling for plastics, and we are working with petrochemical company. We are working with companies who have technology, to recycle plastic in a chemical way, and we, as a waste company who is able to provide the waste, but also to sort and to commercialize, and all this we put it in a joint venture, and we want to improve the way of recycling plastic. One other key element is regulation, and another fact and example. There was an EU directive in 2019 about plastic recycling for bottles, and what we saw after this directive is that the demand for recycled plastic bottles increased for us by 700,000 tons per year. So, which is huge. So you see that when you bring regulation, technology together, then you have an impact, and that's what we need to continue to ignite, and all together. So that's and innovation for sure is key. So regulation, this cooperation, innovation, and not only in technology but also in business model. And then I come to your point on the end customers. We provide water, and we collect waste, and we recycle. There is a model which is today we are paid with the volume of water and the volume of waste that we produce or that we collect, which is a little bit illogical, in the world we are in. So we have already offered business models with concrete cities where we are paid if we manage to reduce the volume of waste of the volume of water, and it's performance contracting.
Right.
So, and business model is an important part, because without changing business models, we will not be fast enough.
Yeah, Rick, jump in, please. Yeah.
So I think Cenk hit on a really good note. The only way to get more circular products to happen is to design more circular products. It starts at the design. The engineers, the companies need to make a commitment. Anybody that's interested in this topic, I encourage you to read a really great book called Cradle to Cradle by Bill McDonough, who's here. And you can pretty much design most products to be circular. Companies need to choose to do that, and if you can, then there'll be a great business on the recycling side, on the receival. It takes the commitment at the top to say, I'm going to build a product that's designed this way, and then you have the ability to recover on the back end. But you can do pretty much everything to be designed. I mean, Apple does great work here. They're moving to fibers away from FFKN and fluorinated polymers. They're doing they were put on the spotlight many years ago by Greenpeace, and then they did something about it, and they actually think about it full spectrum, and they're very good at making their products better every year, more circular.
Well, it's designed both at the product or material level, but as you said, it's business model.
Yeah, they
Toyota's new electric vehicle is based on the car is going to be leased.
That's right.
Therefore, by definition, it's always going to be recycled.
Yeah.
Now, all of this will require, as you mentioned, needs from the government, deregulation, faster incentives. Any high-value tips that you're seeing, Your Excellency, on you had said to go from 9% to 7%. If you're measuring X years from now, we need to be at 25. or 30. Yeah.
Yes, well, maybe even higher. But this is something that we're looking into also on a European level at least, and we should look at it on a global level at the end. But product design really can help. And I think also extended producer responsibility combined can help there, because if a producer is responsible for collecting the end product when it's end of life cycle, then it helps them again if it is designed in such a way that you can put every piece of the old product into the cycle again. So that is really a very important part that should be a very important part of all legislation that is coming up in the field of circular economy.
We'll look forward to seeing that. The hardest challenges you're facing, maybe I'll go to not the pessimistic side, but the reality. Sabrina, why don't you start as you take this agenda on?
I think it's not fast enough, as I mentioned, but I don't want to give a picture which is pessimistic, because we see a lot of positive things which are moving. Yeah. We are not talking about waste anymore. We are talking about secondary raw material. It's getting more and more important. Energy recovery, which was not the case a few years ago. And I think it's going in the right direction. On the water side, I think there needs to be, as I mentioned, more push towards reuse. I think we have a huge potential, reuse, how to preserve our resource, and water is one of our most precious resources that we have. So I don't see it as pessimistic maybe as, because I see things moving. And if everyone wants to do it together, and I mentioned some example of regulations already moving in the right direction and with concrete results and concrete progress, like the plastic one, but there are other ones that I could mention. It's not the only one. I think about ferrous material, because it's also a very important topic. Yeah? Yeah. How to recycle ferrous material. We have a company who does that, and we increase by 20-30% the volume every year in the last years. Yeah? So it means there is a demand, yeah? And it's getting more and more important, because we all know that extracting raw materials produce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, yeah? And this is not good. Another concrete example that I see that could be interesting for everyone, fertilizer, yeah? Food security. It's a very important topic. Fertilizer can be produced through compost, yeah? Bio-waste. Yeah? When you think that we have 1/3 of our bin is bio-waste, we need to recover this bio-waste, yeah? And we need to have regulations to do so. This bio-waste can be either recovered and be transformed in fertilizer, yeah? Or could produce biomethane. Yeah? And these kind of things are moving, yes, too slow, but are moving in the right direction.
Okay, progress, not pessimism. Now, a lot of this requires working value chain, companies, global, with governments. Part of the reason this organization we're all attending this week exists is to enable that, you know. And so the WEF has an initiative called Circular Transformation of Industries. Any perspectives or requests, or what can the World Economic Forum model do to enable this?
I think it takes, I mean, the reason this takes time is just like the airplane took 20 years from the first one till we came up with the shape that was most efficient. It takes some time to get diffusion and people to try different things and see what works best. So, it's been almost 20 years since this concept came up, and now it's starting to enter the mainstream. And I do think that you are going to see a Cambrian explosion of products designed this way. I think there's commitment at the top of companies to embrace products that are easier to unzip when you're done with the product, and take those parts and make new things out of them. That's really there's an educational component on engineers on how to make products. There's a transformation component inside companies on how to approach it, which is a huge opportunity globally to unlock efficiency and make our companies better. I mean, you can choose as an engineer to take a billet of material, machine 90% of it, and end up with an aerospace part, and then all that chips that that is waste, you remelt it, you generate emissions, or you could make it with a more efficient process, whether it's additive manufacturing or something else that doesn't generate all that waste, and you end up with a lighter weight part and more efficient, higher performance component. And this is going to happen. I'm very optimistic that we come back in 20 years and we have people, it's a normal thing. We won't have a circularity team because most products are designed this way. So maybe I'm too optimistic, but I do think that we do have a interest in the young generation in making better products. And so it'll diffuse.
We'll make the session a little bit more interactive. You heard perspectives from CEOs making this a strategy, solutions, government. Ask audience, and please state your name and then go ahead. Do you have questions? Yes, from the front row. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Koizumi Shinjiro, a former Minister of the Environment of Japan. When I was Minister for Environment, I learned many things from your country, especially on circular economy. Because at that time, Japan did not announce carbon neutrality by 2050 yet. Yeah. But I thought carbon neutrality and circular economy, these two issues are same. It's connected.
Yep.
Yes.
So I was keep saying circular economy is a very important issue for Japan. Especially Japan is very dependent on imports, food, energy, and goods.
Yes.
And especially when we talk about carbon neutral and also, car industry, which is, going to be electrified. All the countries are dependent on China, rare earth, rare metal. So we must not, be just, relying on only one country about that. That's why circular economy is very important.
Yes.
The good news, what's happening in Japan now is not only Ministry of Environment is, touching circular economy, but also Ministry for Economy, Trade, and Industry is, starting to,
Acknowledge.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. So my question is about Mr. Alper's comment, break the silo inside the government. That's very important. So if you can give us kind of hint to break the silo inside the government.
This is Chatham House rules here. The Netherlands will guide Japan on silo breaking inside the government.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shinjiro-san.
Well, thank you for your challenging question. In the Netherlands, indeed, I work very closely with the Minister of Economics and Climate Affairs, and they are completely convinced of the need and urgency to switch to a circular economic system. And that helps enormously. The reason, I think, why they are very enthusiastic about it is because the businesses in the Netherlands are also convinced more and more about the necessity to change to a more circular system. You hear the companies over here saying the exact same thing. There, I think also companies can really help in making governments aware of the fact that we have to help them in setting standards and regulations, policies in such a way that they can be facilitated to speed up the process to work in a circular way. Secondly, you mentioned the sustainable mobility part. We want to electrify or maybe use hydrogen, but at least no longer use gas. That's also in my portfolio in the Netherlands. And we really have a big challenge there because we need to have enough natural resources to be able to have enough car batteries, to have enough power to load the batteries. in the Netherlands, we now made a natural resource strategy because I think that you're right that a lot of waste is being seen by some countries as a very valuable resource. And we are still exporting a lot of our waste, whereas we should actually also think very well on how we can use these resources and put them in our own circular system. I think you have a good neighbor sitting next to you to also take a look into that, because we cannot do it all by ourselves. That would also really not make sense. We have to look at it from a global perspective. There should be enough for everyone, and in the end, I'm really happy also to hear again that companies are way more willing to share their technologies, for example. That is the way to go forward, and looking at the natural resource strategy worldwide in order to have enough to, in the end, work towards a circular economy, we have to be able to work together and also fairly and openly say that we need to look at it from that perspective. But politics nowadays can sometimes be very much focused on the short term. You know, politicians change a bit faster than they used to do in the old days, and that makes that's a point of attention in my perspective, because we need to think long term in the interest of also again future generations, as I said. So of course we need to have a good short-term strategy on how to help people, companies in our term, but we also always have to step over our own shadows, and I think companies can really be helpful in pushing governments to also set that long-term agenda.
Well, since we have the opportunity for the Minister here, maybe I'll ask our three CEOs, 1 minute call to action for each. What do you think the community needs to do to get circular economies going faster? Cenk, then Sabrina, then Ric.
I think the biggest challenge is our mindset. So we think that the resources will not end up. Probably I convey all my sympathy to Ukrainian people. Probably this year, circularity in Ukraine has increased because they are aware that resources are limited. So they are reusing, recycling, repurposing everything in their country. So we should keep in our mind that there is an end. Today, recycling or circularity is an end step in our value chains. No, that should be the beginning. That should be the source for our materials.
Thank you, Cenk. Sabrina, one request.
Yeah. So I would like to make a call for cooperation. The circular economy is not an issue which can be solved by one player only, either by public sector or private sector, but it's cooperation. It's all about cooperation and impact. Yeah? And the circular economy makes it necessary to develop new solutions. These new solutions require technical expertise and economical actors. Yeah? But at the same time, we need a supportive and well-functioning policy and regulatory framework. I think this is key, yeah, to increase the demand for circular solutions, and also, we didn't talk too much about it, to give the necessary visibility to secure investments, private investments.
Thank you. Ric?
Yeah, I think that my message to other leaders at companies or government would be to really commit and look at other, commit to transformation and look at other role models that are out there, because there's enough role models across a full spectrum of products that it is possible to do this well and more profitable, and actually make products that are better for people and that are easier to reconstruct as next generation devices, and to look into generative design, which can totally lightweight and increase the performance of the things that we do. And I think it goes hand in hand. Generative design goes hand in hand with circularity. We all see generative AI with ChatGPT, but the same thing is happening in parallel in the design world. Any of the CAD systems that are shipping this model year have generative design features where you You take the old part, you put it in the CAD will help you combine 50 parts into one and reduce weight and reduce the amount of material that you use. Doing that alone can save 30–40% of the mass of a structural product. So it goes hand in hand with a circular product.
Thank you, Rick, and thank our panelists. We have the privilege to be joined by His Excellency Virginijus Sinkevicius, Commissioner for Environment, Oceans and Fisheries for the European Commission. And Your Excellency, would you like to close with a few remarks for the group?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone, and of course it's a big privilege to be speaking to you, and it was excellent remarks by all, but you forced me to say very terrifying English words that, you know, I'm from government and I'm here to help you. So I have to start, which you all mentioned a lot, you know, the key thing is of course policy. And clearly, without policy, good thing that circularity is not going to die without policy. And you named multiple examples where basically circularity has its own life when there is a necessity. Examples about the water. So where water scarcity already is pressing, water reuse is booming without a policy. Tragic examples of Ukraine and so on. But I think, you know, what policy can give us is speeding it up. When we want to make it, and, you know, I'm very pleased to have Vivianne on this panel speaking, because the Netherlands are truly the champions of circularity. But not all cases are like that. So when we have a solid policy that can help us scale up, that can force other actors to act. And we did a lot in the EU already with our circular economy action plan. And the first basic thing which is extremely important is waste. Because waste shipment is, you know, for some, you ship it, no problems, it's solved. But you actually kill all the innovation. You have no chances to develop circular economy and do something because you basically just shipped away any of the opportunities. And until it's not seen like that, that's not going to work. The second thing, absolutely correct, is design, because all starts with design. The devices you all have in your pockets, the screen which is here, and so on. It all started with design, and strangely enough, with significant progress. For example, washing machines suddenly decreased in their cycles, how much they can work rather than increase. Some, you know, from 20 or 15 years to 7–8 years. And clearly, of course, that most of it is pre-designed. That's why we introduced our new changes to eco-design policy, where we will go through the product groups, and we will try to have a full, basically, description of the product group to what basically standards the certain products has to meet. And of course, repairability is going to be one, extraction of resources, and we will be increasing the amount of the extracted resources that has to be used in producing the new ones. But design is the kingmaker. And it's not going to happen, of course, overnight, but that gives enough of time prepare for the industry. Last but not least, in policy, of course, shifting and for businesses is shifting from goods to services. And I'm very happy when I speak at the universities. Very often I hear these examples that people simply need a transportation. They don't need a car. You need a light, not a light bulb. And there are multiple examples like that, and I think they will be only scaling up. But this is where I'm coming to my second part. Businesses will need incentives, because some of these technologies are still too expensive. So of course R&D has to be funded, especially when we speak about SMEs. They don't have as deep pockets, so we need to help them. We need to help them to scale it up. And we have, I think, a few tools in our pocket. One is, of course, always is innovation, R&D funding, but also green public procurements. For those companies, the doors has to be way more wider open than they are now, so that they would have additional opportunities. Last thing, which I was surprised, none of you actually mentioned, but skills. it's still going to be a key. If you really want to make a circularity a norm, skills are going to play an enormous role because we already see the shortages in some of circular models, shortages of skilled labor. Last but not least, to conclude, it has to be global. I have my good friend here, Shinjiro, which we, had excellent meetings when he was the Minister of Economy, and we still do when he is not, because he is the one who really advocates and believes in circularity in Japan, and that has to become a global. We have started, and I'm very proud, Netherlands also with us, the circular economy and resource mobilization sort of group of like-minded countries. We want to scale up, and next year we finally will do our circular economy missions, where we want to take our most prominent businesses to other parts of the world and meet B2B and really scale it up. So that would be my closing remarks to your excellent remarks. Again, I really enjoyed listening to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for the panelists. You've already summarized well. We have committed leadership in the commercial sector, committed governments. We have to make progress. For those of you who'd like to engage with the World Economic Forum, the platform for shaping the future, advanced manufacturing value chains, Center for Nature and Climate, it'll be on the screen. Please take it with your phone, and let's all stay committed to advancing the cause here. Thank you all.